So hello there and welcome back to the channel. I can't believe that we haven't analyzed or reacted to Opeth before, so we're gonna be doing it today. And for those of you who don't know who Opeth is one of my favorite bands ever. It's a death metal band from Sweden, if I recall correctly, and we're going to be reacting to their latest album. This album in question is called The Last Will and Testament, and the track that we're going to be reacting to is S3, or whatever the pronunciation for that thing is. And spoiler alert, as I said before, is one of my favorite bands ever, and they have influenced the development of my music and myself as a musician and music engineer. Because they happen to be great musicians, and I love their music quite well. So, with that being said, let's get into it. But before we go, if this is your first time on the channel, welcome, because in here we analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, but using language that everybody can understand in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production and songwriting in general. So, if that's your jam, let's rock and roll. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. S3, I guess, by Opeth. Sorry for interrupting, but you know the drill. First and foremost, Opeth is a fantastic band, isn't it? They are always fantastic. I love their music quite a lot. And I think it clearly shows, right, on my face, because I've been a fan of them since I discovered them back in the early 2000s. Very much a huge inspiration on me as a musician and also as a composer as well. Great, great band. But now, let's talk about the sound of this track in particular. I gotta say that the introduction was quite cool. Plenty of jazz elements to it, don't you think? I mean, in the way that the chord progression took place, and also the instrumentation was very cool. I was trying to draw your attention towards a particular instrument being used during the main riff, because you got the guitar, and also a little bit of celeste, I don't know the proper pronunciation for that instrument, which is kind of a keyword that creates this kind of bell-like sound that was playing alongside the heavy guitars that were also harmonized, because you got two guitars playing at the same time, creating this beefy, punchy tone, quite melodic as well. Beautiful. That was awesome. Also, please remind me the name of the drummer for this album, because he's excellent. He was killing it the entirety of the time. Opeth has always been great when it comes to drumming, and in this album is, of course, keeping up with that beautiful tradition. So please remind me the name of the drummer. Now, speaking of drums, I have always been a fan of the sound of the drums for this band. Every freaking record always surprises me with the beautiful, natural jet punchy sound of their drums. They have a very good taste when it comes to the development of the sounds for their instruments. And generally speaking, their mixes tends to sound very good. I happen to be a huge fan of them in that regard. And in this case, we're dealing with a weird yet efficient way of blending their both styles. Because if you are a fan of the band, you might remember that the last few albums were heavily inspired by late 60s, early 70s prog rock, even in the sound and, of course, in the composition, clashing dramatically with their original style, which was much more of a modern take on death metal slash progressive rock elements. If you remember, Steven Wilson had plenty to do with them during the early 2000s. Steven Wilson being the mastermind behind Porcupine. Fantastic band as well. I like them a lot. And their sound was very similar in when it comes to the sound of the mixes, not the sound of their music. Okay? And in this case, I think we got kind of a middle ground, finally, in which it still has plenty of those old-fashioned style of approaches to mixing and producing music, while at the same time developing a sound that is modern enough for it to be easier on modern audiences, if that makes sense to you. Quite good. Now, there was also another thing that David did with his vocals, in particular in several points across this first verse that we listened to, which is the use of a delay, which is, you might know as well. It's an effect that we use to create repetitions of the sound. In this case, it sounds like this: delay. And to my ears, they are using some form of tape delay, and it adds a little bit of a less precise sound to each of the repetitions. Subsequent repetitions start to degrade in quality, but that's not a bad thing. It's actually very musical. Somehow that erosion of the quality of the sound adds plenty of texture to these particular effects. And it was done clearly on the spots on which it got through. Super cool. Something that I appreciate a lot. Also, before I press play again, I want you to pay attention to the sound of the guitars, because they're awesome. I love how well integrated they are, and also partially is due to their excellent composition. And yes, you can clearly see that I happen to be a huge fanboy, but for obvious reasons, they are very good. The composition is very good because both guitars are playing in a way that are supportive. It's not that they are trying to, they're not necessarily speaking playing the same. And also what they play, even though it's not necessarily the same, it's actually creating a much more thicker harmony, beefing up the sound and making the band feel thick and powerful and very harmonically pleasing. Love it. So let's listen to some music. But before I do that, if you like what you're hearing and you're watching, please help us by clicking on the like button, because that helps a lot. You don't believe how much YouTube loves you when you do that. And we love you even more. So please do that. Okay, let's keep rocking. Here we go.
shame a secret treaty. The lovers bond.
That was awesome. That section at the end took me by surprise. I actually thought that the track was basically finished, because for disclosure purposes, this is actually the second time that I listened to this record, this song. Because of course I did it before getting prepared. Because even though I'm a huge Opeth fan, I haven't given myself the chance to listen to this album in its entirety. I just listened to some of the tracks passively a few weeks ago. But this is the first time that I actually spent time with the track like this. Fantastic. Now, I had problems with stopping the track. I usually like to have at least 3 interventions when it comes to this kind of analysis. But this being prog rock and this having this great composition, it was difficult for me to find a spot in which I could stop the track. Once again, testament on how good of a band Opeth is when it comes to writing music that is interesting enough, but short enough to keep it in a digestible package. Fantastic. So now let's talk about the mix. Let's take a look at the screen right now. Over here we got our frequency range analyzer here, and also dynamic range. This is the tool that we like to use in this channel for analyzing music through the use of visual medium. For those of you who are not familiar with it, this is called decibel, and over here we got the frequency range analyzer, which is displaying to us through the use of this white line how loud each of the frequencies that are part of the human hearing range were at their highest point while the track was playing. So first and foremost, as usual, we're going to be focusing our attention on the low end. And not surprising at all, this feeling punchy and kind of modern sounding, we got plenty of low end, but not in a bombastic fashion. I like this a lot because in modern metal, you tend to have a little bit more of a increased or a boost on the lower register, because it gives music a much more intense sound to it. It's much more punchy and energetic, but you lose a little bit of the organic aspects of in music, because you in order to create that kind of bombastic sound, you gotta start to push a lot, work with your instruments on the mixing board and stuff, and you will start to enhance to create a hyper image of reality rather than keeping it and pushing it forward. And what I mentioned during the first half of this analysis, I love how Opeth always have this organic yet pristine sound to their drums, and it's clearly here seen. Because the kick drum, even though feels punchy, still kind of retains a little bit of that organic element to it. Also, I like quite a lot the use of the mid-range here. Why? Because remember when I mentioned that how much I like the tone of the guitars in this record? This is why. It feels punchy, very much contributing in gigantic ways to the sound of the music, and they are not clashing with each other. You can see here that we got the low mid range and the high mid range here, and it's not super high. This means that the guitar tones, which is usually located in that particular section of the frequency range spectrum, are not screeching. They are quite pleasant to the ear, but they are still precise and pristine enough. Let me explain a bit more on this. This section, this 3K to 5K area, is where most of the aggression on an electric guitar playing metal usually would be found. The aggression, not the beef or the meat of the tone. That usually will be found in this area over here, and that's why we got this proper balance, okay? This is a very good sounding mix, extremely good sounding mix. You usually see me reacting in an overly fashion when it comes to mixing, because that's what I do for a living, and I happen to be a sucker for that. But in this case, I'm quite impressed, very, very much impressed, as you can tell. And also, this section over here is the highs, and we see a gentle roll off in the frequency range. This means, once again, sticking to the guitars for now, that our guitars are not shrieky, but also our cymbals are not pointy. in my opinion, this record sounds organic, yet a little bit on the warmer side of things when it comes to tone of music. What do I mean by warm? Warm is when something is a little bit kind of less intense in the high end, adding this kind of blanket to it that makes it feel cozy, if that makes sense. And I know we're talking about metal, right? But I think you get what I'm trying to say. And once again, fantastic sounding mix. I'm quite impressed, being very frank, especially because well, this is a record from 2024, so it's super recent. And modern music has to have been going through this stupid tendency of going overly bombastic on everything, particularly metal, which is kind of the antithesis of what makes rock and metal music be what it is, because the idea is for it to be true, right? To be close to the heart. It has to be honest and present itself correctly to you, right? And having this culture of pushing everything forward in a way that is very much akin to what overly produced pop music tends to be, it's annoying to me. But a band such as this one releasing records like this is a good sign of the changings of the tides. Okay, now let's take a look at the second section of the analyzer. This is the dynamic range analyzer, and in here we're going to see how loud the track has been throughout time. This is very important because depending on the loudness levels of a track throughout its performance, we will have a different way to react to it emotionally speaking. When something is louder, for whatever reason, our brains understands that signal to be much more exciting and attention grabbing for obvious reasons, right? It's louder, but it's more intense, it's much more energetic sounding, and it usually it has this effect on us of pumping us up. But in contrast, when something is quieter, it becomes much more intriguing, interesting, sexier, darker sounding, and or evil. And this being Opeth dynamic range is very important. Let's see how loud it was. The dynamic range stands for, in very specific terms, the relationship between the highest point in volume with the lowest point in volume. Okay, and this blue block is showing us exactly that relationship. This is the beginning of the track. Okay, this is the first section we listened to together. The introduction, of course, was very low volume, and it ramped up dramatically. Good, because that's why we got hit. We were like, wow, this is surprising, right? As you see how it kept going, this is the introduction to the sound, which by the way reminded me quite a lot, some passages of the riff being played by the guitars, a little bit of Dream Theater, but just fractions of the performance. Tell me what you think about that. And this is the first drop when they introduce the vocals. Awesome. See how big the drop in volume is. It's basically, whoof. It took the sound of the music down enough for it to be once again interesting to us, because this is almost a minute or so in. Of course, it's a long introduction, but having this drop in volume brought our attention back to it, allowing the vocals to take center stage, and see how much it takes for it to ramp up to once again bring us back to that intense level of intensity. This is consistency, because this is once again the guitars taking over and hitting hard. This is the verse when they were playing loud. But then another drop for us to be hit by what could be the chorus of this track and see the jump in volume. Slight but mighty. Why? By doing this, the chorus section hit us harder, with more intensity and with more more power in general, because it draws much more of our attention over there, making us do this, yes. Get me? Very important. And yeah, this is done by playing with the mixer here, okay? So in a nutshell, a mixer engineer tends to be playing tricks on you. Now, let's take a look at the second half of the track. And this is actually cool. Look at this. I'm going to use the mouse to hover over I'm going to put the mouse on top of the loudest point of the previous section, and let's see how loud the next section is compared to that one. Almost the same. And look, this is kind of the second verse. So the second verse is as loud as the first chorus, for it to ramp up again in intensity and volume, because this could be the instrumental section, which was fantastic, by the way. If you happen to know who is the one playing the guitar solo on that one, please let me know, because I know that Michael Ackerfeld is actually a very good blues-like guitar player. And you see that you get this boost in volume again, but this is a little bit gentler. Great. This is very good, because it allows the song to breathe again and to push us a little bit, push harder and draw attention back to it. And here's where they play tricks on me. Oh no, it's here. See how much the song drops in here dramatically. Because this is the point in which where they basically removed everything but the vocals and a little bit of the synthesizers. And the string arrangement, which by the way, I happen to be quite big of a fan of it because it's actually very well done in this one. We actually had a conversation yesterday discussing how much rock music could overuse or benefit from the use of classical instruments such as an string arrangement. If you want to watch that one, it's somewhere on the screen. But gotta tell you, I love that the use of the string arrangement in this track very much. And going back to the analyzer, you see that we got this jump just to draw our attention back for the track to keep dropping, giving the impression of the track fading out. And this is when they took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting this to happen. Again, I'm not that familiar with the track yet. And this drop, see how much they jump in volume when they bring back the rest of the band, the entirety of the band. Is the loudest point in the entire track, blasting you away after they play that trick on you. This gotta be super fun live. So all in all, what a great track! What a great way to keep to bring Opeth back to the game. From what I have heard from this album, in this one, Michael Ackerfeld is finally bringing back the guttural singing, the growling style vocals. For those of you death metal fans that were kind of iffy with him going cleaner vocals for the last couple of albums, yeah, he brought them back. I happen to be a fan of everything. Actually, I didn't talk about the quality of his voice. I love the way he sang in this one. I happen to be a fan of his vocal style of both the guttural singing, but also the clean style. But in all fairness, I think he's a way better clean singer than he's as a guttural one, and he's excellent as a guttural singer. I gotta tell you, it's incredible that he managed to do both properly well. But once again, a very talented band. So all in all, that's my take on this track by Opeth. Please let me know what you think about it. And if you happen to like this content, please leave a like, leave a comment. And as usual, if you want to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis, you can join our Discord, which allow us to keep the conversation going. And also you can follow us on Instagram and X. With that being said, as usual, the only thing left to be reminded is that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that I will see you when I see you.